Welcome back to the Poultry Podcast. Today we're talking about a commonly misunderstood condition in backyard chickens, water belly. We'll discuss the easiest ways to detect it early using a simple tool many have at home, one that can provide valuable insight into the health of your flock before it's too late. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Poultry Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Blaine Mozeshek, and today what we're going to do is address a few of the things that have come up recently within the forum and some of the things we posted online in our Instagram and other social media channels. And the first is weighing your birds. So you may have seen our Instagram post where you saw me using our kitchen scale in the house and getting a good weight in grams of our birds. Now this scale is not ideal, it's a little small, but for the purposes of the video it worked well. Now the reason we weigh our birds is because we want to keep track of, one, they should constantly be growing a little bit, especially at this age. This is a pullet and she should be consistently growing, consistently getting larger. But what happens is when we weigh, we can see if that either plateaus, that growth and weight plateaus, or begins to decline. Both of those are signs that something could be going on, and it really gives us some good insight into their health. As you know, chickens are prey animals and they do a very good job of hiding any kind of sickness or issues. And so with these feathers, it really prevents us from getting a good idea of their body condition. However, weight, again, is a great insight into that. So if she were to start either plateauing, which means stop gaining weight, or especially losing weight, that's when we can take a better look and see what's going on. My first action there would be, let's run a fecal. Let's see if there's maybe a cocci issue going on, or potentially maybe a respiratory issue going on. We could do some swabbing and test her for respiratory disease like mycoplasma or bronchitis, etc. So again, weight becomes a really good insight into health. And, depending on the life stage of the bird, those weights become more important, right? She's growing right now. Usually chickens at this age do pretty well. But again, we're taking monthly weights. Again, that gives us good insight into the bird. But as they get older, maybe coming into production when times are more stressful, we maybe want to take a weight every week. That may not be a bad idea either. Again, it really depends on how docile your birds are too. Now, trying to get that chicken to stand on a scale isn't ideal. And if you saw our Instagram post, you can see how difficult it was to try to get them to stand there. For the purposes of the video, we tried to stick them on the scale and stand them up. It's much easier to get a cardboard box, save a Amazon box that they can easily fit in, put them inside that box and weigh the box. That's much easier to do and easier to accomplish. And we'll provide you the same thing. So put the box on the scale, tar the weight out, put the chicken in, and get a good weight that way. So I've got a note on my phone that has a table in it. It goes by date and has all their names in it. And we just put that weight in there and keep track. So if you're weighing your birds, one of the questions you may have is just how much can that weight fluctuate, right? Birds are pretty stable in their weight. They should have a pretty much continuous sort of growth. Obviously, as they get larger, that weight's going to plateau or maybe just not gain so much. A lot of that will depend on what variety of bird you have. So keep that in mind as well. But we want to, we probably don't want the weight to differ by more than 10% from weighing 10% down, right? So if they're growing, that's fine. The other thing you need to keep in mind is that depending on what time you feed them, that can have a big difference in how much they weigh, especially considering this crop can hold 30, 40, 50 grams, just really depending on the age of the bird. So if we're gonna weigh in the morning before they eat, just be consistent about weighing in the morning before they eat. Keep in mind that weight may fluctuate depending on how much they've had to eat. So our second topic today is gonna be water belly. So it's a common general term really, and just refers to fluid in the abdomen. Now there can be two reasons why there's fluid in the abdomen. One is ascites, and two is what we call a cystic right oviduct. Okay, so first we'll start with cystic right oviduct. Now, the reproductive system in a chicken is just like most other species. It starts with two sides. However, in chickens or in birds, that right side regresses. It's kind of one way to remember it. Right side regresses, the left side is left behind, okay? So the left side is actually the functional side of the oviduct. This is where all the eggs are going to come from. The right side, again, regresses to really, you can't find it hardly in a normal chicken. But as they get older, so these are hens that have been in production for a while, maybe a year, 2 years old, 3 years old, that right side can sometimes develop into a cyst. If we opened her up and we went to surgery, you would just see a very thin-walled, large fluid-filled cyst. And that fluid is clear. This is going to be a distinction later. So the fluid inside that right cystic oviduct is going to be clear, sometimes a little bit cloudy. The way we notice it is, one, she's got water belly, right? Fluid in the abdomen. So you'll feel her abdomen. It feels like there's a water balloon in there. And again, then this is going to be that cystic right oviduct. And what the issue is, the cyst really doesn't cause any issues. It's not life-threatening, but what can be threatening is the fact that it's taking up space in her abdomen and it's restricting her ability to breathe. And we'll describe the respiratory system in a chicken because it's important to know actually what's going on here. Chickens have a series of air sacs, independent air sacs, and there's a couple above the chest, the clavicular air sacs, and then there's several in the abdomen. So in a chicken, she'll breathe in through the trachea, through the windpipe. That air goes through the lungs, and the lungs in a chicken are fixed. They're not like ours that expand and contract. So they're fixed. They're actually up into the vertebra or the ribs of the chicken. And again, they don't expand and contract like ours do. The air actually goes through them once and then into those air sacs and then back out. So it's a really efficient system for birds and allows them to actually try to capture oxygen 2 times, one going in and a second time going out. And again, it acts like, if you think of a bellows, it acts like a bellows. So when she draws air in, pulls air through the trachea, through the lungs, into those air sacs, and then forces the air back out from the air sacs through the lungs and out the mouth. So when that cystic right oviduct is taking space in the abdomen, it really restricts the volume that she can breathe in and restricts the volume that those abdominal air sacs are able to handle. And so you'll see her start to maybe breathe more deeply at first, or eventually just sort of an open mouth breathing like she's struggling to breathe. And what we want to do there, if you see that, and she's an older hen, really that's when we're palpating, you can feel that fluid in the abdomen. And so that's one way. So the second reason for fluid in the abdomen would be ascites. And ascites is going to be caused by really 2 things. One is either disease of the liver or disease of the heart. Disease of the liver is often caused by aflatoxin. So these can be mold toxins that are found in feed that have specific damaging effects on the liver. So they actually cause the liver cells to die. And that kind of scarification of the liver prevents blood from easily flowing through it, and it creates a back pressure on the circulatory system. So now you create this pressure, and that forces fluid out of the vessels and into the abdomen. That fluid is going to be distinctly different than the fluid we find in the cystic right oviduct. That fluid has a yellow tinge, straw color to it, versus, remember, our cystic right oviduct that's basically clear, sometimes cloudy. So that's an important distinction. The second way we can have ascites form is from heart disease. And we will usually find this in our faster growing breeds of chickens. So think broiler chickens that are really designed to put on weight very quickly. Those birds grow so fast that the heart really has trouble keeping up with the growth of the muscle and everything else that bird's trying to put on. So if we've got broilers that are in 24-hour lighting, for example, that's one of the real common ways to do it, that they're growing so fast that, again, the heart just can't supply enough or is working too hard to supply blood to those growing muscles that it begins to fail. And so we see this right-sided heart failure where the left side's pumping blood, the right side can't keep up. And again, that back pressure forces fluid into the abdomen. So the fluid comes through, leaks through the veins basically, or leaks through the veins into the abdomen. And again, we see this yellow straw-colored fluid. Now the way we're going to handle that, or at least determine what's going on and relieve that fluid in the abdomen, is to try to drain it. So if you do see fluid in the abdomen, it's pretty easy to figure out. I mean, this is a young pullet, she doesn't have fluid in the abdomen, and our older birds, obviously they would be much larger, but what we want to feel for is her abdomen. So you can run your finger down her breast and you'll feel the bottom of her keel bone, and then her abdomen sits right there. In these birds with water belly, you basically can kind of pat the abdomen and you'd almost see waves go through her skin, and it'll just feel like a water balloon back there. It's pretty easy once you've felt it the first time. The way we're going to handle that is we're going to try to drain it. And the first thing you want to do, one, is prep that area that you're going to insert a needle. So we're actually going to use ideally a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch needle. These are more difficult to come by, but a short, say 18 gauge needle, and relative to the vent, We're going to go about 5 o'clock from the vent and about an inch or so over. Really depends on the size of the bird, but we want to be to the right side of the vent. And again, about 5 o'clock, on the dial, basically at an angle. And you'll feel, you can tap that abdomen and you'll just feel like a water balloon. We've already prepped that area. We've disinfected it or with an aseptic solution like chlorhexidine or betadine. Either of those two would work. It's probably not a bad idea to pluck a few feathers right where you want to go in, maybe mark it with like a little magic marker so you know where you're going. And then just a really quick stab of that short needle into that space. And when we're going in there, really the main area that you want to avoid or the potential of hitting something would be the intestines. And so we again, don't want to go too far. You don't want to press too deep. The fluid in there really creates a buffer. So the intestines tend to be kind of held up closer to the back, and that fluid's going to sag down. So it's important to keep her up, right side up. One is we don't want to turn her upside down because, again, if I turn her upside down, those air sacs have all the pressure from the fluid, and her internal organs are going to rest down on those air sacs and, again, prevent her to breathe, and we don't want to do that. So always want to keep her right side up. Again, find that spot about 5 o'clock from the vent, an inch or so over. We've got that area prepped. We're going to quickly insert that short needle, and you'll immediately see fluid coming out if you're in the right space. Now, this is where we want to collect the fluid. One, you want to measure exactly how much you're getting out. It's always a good idea to kind of keep track of that, especially if you're going to do it over multiple times. But here we want to note the color of the fluid. Is it clear or is it yellow? Obviously, clear is much better than yellow. We can, in the case of cystic right oviduct, we can continue to drain her abdomen for as long as she can handle it, and it's not going to have a long-term impact on her life or longevity as long as we can keep that fluid off and she can breathe easily. The cystic right oviduct really doesn't develop into a bigger issue. Now, on the other hand, liver disease and heart disease, those are two bigger things and harder to deal with. And as far as a prognosis goes, they're certainly more severe prognosis, and not long term. It's not going to be a good thing, but you can improve her quality of life in the short term while she's still going through that issue. Thanks for joining into another episode of the Poultry Doc Podcast. I want to give a special shout out to our founding feathers and all the support that they've provided. It's been awesome to see it, and I really appreciate it. If you're not aware, the Founding Feather is a kind of white glove veterinary consulting experience for your backyard flock. It provides 2 hours of consulting with me, among many other things. So check it out if you're not aware at thepoultrydoc.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.